Today we have put together this webinar to share some exciting news about our organization and the industry as a preview for our members of news that will be formally announced to the public next week. This session is going to be recorded so that it will be made available to those members who are unable to join us today. So if we would go to the next slide. So I'm going to start off today and give you a brief background and history and put into perspective some of the current forces that are driving our industry now and in the future, and that have been the major impetus behind this change that you're going to hear about from us today. I'm joined today by Brian Russell, who's Senior Vice President of Financial Institutions at Giesecke and Devrient, and is also the Chairman of our Board of Directors. And as many of you know, G&D is one of the global leaders in our smart card products and services industry. So Brian brings us a global perspective on the industry and the market, as well as a dedicated leader and supporter of the Smart Card Alliance organization. Cathy Medich is going to join us as well, and she's going to talk about the industry councils and the expansion of the mission and how that's going to impact on our programs. And then I'm going to pick up from Cathy and talk about the activities going forward and the changes that we have planned for the organization. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to take your questions. So thank you again for being with us today and participating on today's webinar. During the webinar, we encourage you to submit your questions using the dashboard on the GoToWebinar screen so that we can sort those questions prior to the Q&A time so we get to as many of the best questions in the time that we have at the end. So I encourage you to go ahead and submit those questions at any time rather than just waiting until we start the Q&A period. So changes ahead. Next slide, please. So I want to begin with reminding everybody about what has been the core focus and mission of our organization for the last 20 years. So on the screen, I've highlighted in red the core principles of our mission, which have served our members well. So the Smart Card Alliance mission is we are a not-for-profit, multi-industry association that's working to stimulate the understanding, adoption, use, and widespread application of smart card technology. And the Alliance invests heavily in education on the appropriate uses of the technology for identification, payment, and other applications, and strongly advocates the use of smart card technology in a way that protects privacy, enhances data security and integrity. So this has been our core mission and focus of the organization and has driven a large portion of the activities that the Smart Card Alliance has built over time and developed for the market. I want to focus on a couple of the key strengths of that mission statement and what that means in terms of how we've executed on that mission. So the multi-industry participation part, I think, is extremely important because it offers us different perspectives, not only from specific markets that we serve. Payments is very different from government, which is very different from mobile and transportation, but also in that those markets we have representation from both the technology and services side as well as the adopter and application user side, and this provides for a rich dialogue and discussion of different perspectives that make the organization so rich. The understanding, adoption, and use part of the message really focuses on offering a broad set of possible actions or services that the Smart Card Alliance provides. So the understanding part really says a lot about our education focus and our industry gathering to share new information and get everyone up to speed on how the technology and its use in various markets is changing. The adoption piece takes that education and understanding information and helps lead the way in terms of best practices or the standards that are out in the market so that people understand how to use the technology effectively And then the use of the technology is where we can highlight where successful implementations of the technology have taken place, examples being how we've implemented EMV in the U.S. or secure chip cards as identity cards in the government, or transportation adopting open payments and mobile wallets. And so we're able to move both from the key understanding part to how it gets implemented to showcasing and showing examples of proper use of the technology. I think the education piece is one of the core things that has really united the Alliance over its years. As an educational mission, it helps to strip out any of the commercial influences to bias the results or the reports or resources that our organization is able to generate. And that's really important, that the information that comes out of the Smart Card Alliance is vetted by multiple sources, is stripped of any biases and commercial value, and is really something that industry can look at and adopt and know that it's trusted and it's valuable. And then finally, the part about protecting privacy and enhancing data security. These are fundamental, strong values that every market needs today. And so having that focus around implementing technology, but doing so in a way that protects privacy and enhances data security, means that we're not conflicting with the desires and the needs of the industry, but rather we're really aligned with and supporting those values that organizations who are investing find most important and are willing to invest in. So next slide, Cathy. So change is always and will always be a big part of the smart card industry. And I've been around a lot longer than I care to think about sometimes. But when I first got started in this industry back in the mid-90s, the big thing was phone cards. And some of you may have been around that long and remember those days when these memory cards were used and inserted in payphones to replace coins. And those memory cards or smart cards led to uses besides telephone into other coin-operated markets like parking and photocopiers and later even vending machines. And those memory cards evolved into protected memory cards, which added additional layers of security. And then those cards evolved into microprocessor cards, which added an operating system and other security features to be able to handle more sophisticated transactions and ensure that they were protected. Microprocessor cards even evolved over time to crypto coprocessor cards to handle the early PKI encryption algorithms that required additional speed and processing power. And then later we started to see those same microprocessor cards evolve into contactless or dual interface cards. And after 9/11, we saw citizen ID cards such as the electronic passports standardized around contactless chip technology, as well as the identity cards established for the federal government and the Department of Defense, the CAC card, and then later the PIV card specification that was driven by HSPD 12. The mobile industry brought us other form factors of chip technology, the SIMs, the USB devices that also plugged into laptops and other portables, UICCs, which incorporated security as well as controlling the protection for the mobile operator, micro SD cards, which were plug-in attachments, and then secure elements, which became part of the NFC generation. And the mobile industry continues to evolve and change over time, and so we've participated in that evolution. So hardware security has evolved into being augmented by both embedded chip security and software security, in some cases, depending on the application and the use, replacing a card form factor. And so we as a smart card industry have continued to evolve and change our approach to this to support those types of applications, regardless of the shape and size of which the technology is being implemented. And we've always been an industry that's adapted to change, and the rate of change in the markets served has been increasing at an accelerating rate. The next slide. So part of that has been an emergence of many new markets that have developed that our market has and needs to continue to service and support that have gone beyond cards. And I think the mobile devices is the most important driver for this, with smartphones, tablets, laptops, phablets, and other things that are the new computing platform of the future. But it's not going to end there, and what comes next is still open for the imaginations of some of the tech developers of the future, and so we would expect that there's going to be no slowdown in the changes around that mobile platform. We're also witnessing new ways in which our chip technology is being incorporated into automobiles, such as connected cars that talk to the internet, to monitor safety, provide entertainment and directions, and even can replace cash and cards and become what is effectively a 2-ton payment device. And then there's the overall Internet of Things market. That includes smart homes, smart appliances, smart toys, smart watches and wearables, and all of those devices connecting together into a network of smart devices and even communities called smart cities. And so the need for chip technology and security is no longer being defined by card, whether it's mobile, automobile, or the Internet of Things. And so neither are we. And that's what's really exciting about the changes that we're about to announce. So as our organization, we represent all of these new applications and services, and we shouldn't be limited or defined simply by the legacy of the smart card itself. Next slide. So when we thought about what this change might mean and how it might get implemented, the first thing we did was went back to you, our members, and asked for your input. And some of you may recall responding to this question in the June 2006 member survey, where we asked, would you support rebranding the organization and changing its focus and embrace technology beyond smart cards? We left it fairly generic because at that time we didn't know what that might mean. But what we got in our response was very positive. Out of 112 people who answered that question, 89.3%, or roughly 9 out of every 10 people, felt yes, that they would support us making that change. So that energized our board, and when our board met for our strategy session to look at the 3- and 5-year plan back in July of 2016, a couple of key things came up in the discussion I wanted to share with you today. One of them was that there was now a general consensus and understanding that smart cards, as our definition, were actually limiting what our organization was capable of doing. And so the main issue was looked at to shift to secure rather than smart in terms of the technologies that we were doing, so that we were not limited by a discussion around a specific form factor and use case that has defined us in the past, but open the door for opportunities to serve a new market and the ever-changing market that was to come. One of those concerns that we talked a lot about in those meetings was not losing sight of our core competency. I mean, we are effectively a smart card industry and organization that's been built on that foundation. And so we didn't want to give the impression that we were abandoning smart cards and we were going to focus on things that were nothing to do with smart card or chip technology and become too broad. And so we were very conscientious of trying to show this as a migration rather than a total transformation. And I think what you'll hear and see in the next few months will prove that out to be the case. Next slide, please. So here is the announcement. We have revised our mission of the organization and adopted it to what we believe to be the current and future of this organization, with some just minor tweaks to the mission statement. So now the mission will be to work to stimulate the understanding, adoption, and widespread application of secure solutions, including smart cards, embedded chip technology, and related hardware and software in the United States. Below that are some examples of what that broader view of security technologies might look like. But you'll note that we have not taken smart card out of our mission, and that this transition to these other technologies, like embedded chip designs in mobile devices, other forms of mobile hardware and software security, and IoT, have already begun within the Smart Card Alliance, and many of our council activities and white papers and webinars and workshops, and even our conference content have shifted towards these broader view of security technologies already. So it's really about catching up the official organization to what has already begun to change within the community of our industry. And so to support that, we also decided that we were going to change our name. And so the new name of the organization is going to be the Secure Technology Alliance. And we chose this particular logo image to reflect that the Secure Technology Alliance is a fluid organization where it embraces a changing marketplace, that our core elements are still around security and chip technology, but that we are going to evolve and change and adopt secure technologies as a whole, and show how that transition from this card form factor is going to play out into the market here and now in the future. And so I'm going to stop there right now and offer some further insight later on in the presentation, but now I'm going to hand off to Brian Russell, our board chair, to share some of his thoughts. So Brian?
Thanks very much, Randy, and welcome everyone. Really excited to see the number of members that have joined the call. Obviously, this is important to all of us. I'm speaking on behalf of my chairman position, but also the executive committee and all of the councils, and quite frankly, all of you. I think, as you've heard from Randy's comments, I think the most important thing that I take away from it is this is a migration. It's not a transformation. We're not magically changing everything overnight, but we've all been living in this fast-changing environment. And Cathy, if you can go to the next slide, we can go through just a couple of the points that I wanted to highlight, because we've all been talking about it. All of us on the phone, we're all involved in these rapidly evolving markets. I mean, I think we're all really amazed at how quickly things are changing. The technology growth that we have, I recently got one of these in-house routers from Wink, and I'm amazed at the technology that's in the light bulbs now and in these devices. And I don't know why I have to turn the lights on and off from my phone, but it's pretty cool. But this is what's happening in our market. You know, IoT and the ability to communicate to so many devices is pretty astounding. And most of those devices have chips in them. And that's really, you know, the core of what the Smart Card Alliance has been, is that chip technology, and happened to be in a card, but that technology and the solutions around it, handling the credentials, managing identity, providing security, that's what we've all been providing as members of this organization. The chips are everywhere. So as we look at the way the business is growing, we've all had these discussions, and over the past we've talked about it a lot. Within the what was formerly known as the Smart Card Alliance, we looked at NFC, we looked at all these different opportunities, and as we see the markets changing in our future, and as Randy pointed out in a number of his slides, we're always changing. We're always adapting to the market. There's great opportunities for us to capitalize on these market changes. The security that's provided by the smart card technology in the card is now being used in all different devices. So I think that this is a change for the organization. We need to move in the right direction. We're not radically changing anything, but building upon our foundation. We kept Alliance in the name for a reason, because it's a building exercise. Cathy, if you just want to go to the next page, that'd be great. And as we look at it, I can speak from a Giesecke and Devrient perspective as well as the chair position. We're all seeing these changes in our businesses. We're all working with different partners and building relationships that 5 years ago we never would have thought of. I personally believe, and I think many of you have provided the input, that we need to grow, we need to diversify, we need to be able to show that this technology can be used in many places. So the impact here will be a stronger and more diverse STA. We will have the ability to address a wider set of applications. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for us to be able to leverage our technology in many new markets, many new applications. And also, we see this as a way to attract new members. So we think these changes pointing in the direction of expanding into solutions, leveraging the technology in different markets, it's going to be very, very powerful. So as members today, we see a lot more opportunities. This broader membership will help us build more partnerships. And we really think it's going to be able to expand the business for all of us. We really feel very positive about this, and as what was historically a traditional smart card manufacturer, G&D, and many of our companies are now repositioning ourselves as identity management and digital security, and we're all moving in this direction. So I think this change, transforming the Smart Card Alliance into the Secure Technology Alliance, is a really positive move. I think it's going to really help all of us, and I'm very proud of the work that Randy and Cathy and the team have done. They've been the ones really driving this. I think the board and other participants have been very supportive of it, but we are very excited to see us take this step forward and open up a new chapter for this organization. So that's it for me, Cathy. I think I'm going to hand it back over to you now.
Great, thanks very much, Brian. So I'm going to briefly talk about our industry councils, and I see that there are many of our industry council members on the webinar, and the positive impact that we expect the mission expansion to have on our council activities. So as most of you know, we have a very active membership participating in the councils. We started the industry council over 10 years ago to focus on specific issues and opportunities in the different vertical markets for smart cards in the U.S. And we now have 7 councils: access control, health and human services, identity, mobile, payments, transportation, and our newest council established in 2016, the IoT Security Council. The council members have been extremely productive and effective at leading into the industry discussion in the markets and producing quality resources for the industry as a whole. So before we move to looking at future programs, I just wanted to reflect on the council contributions of the recent past. If you look at the Access Control Council, we've had a great focus on FIPS 201, PIV credentials, and federal identity programs, so that the council became the go-to resource for the federal government on the use of PIV and PACS. The Health and Human Services Council produced numerous resources on smart health ID cards for both patients and providers, and has established excellent relationships with other key healthcare organizations. The Identity Council started with ePassport, as you might remember, many years ago, and has moved on to projects in cybersecurity and identity authentication like NSTIC and FIDO. The Mobile Council was in the middle of the rollout of NFC-enabled mobile payment, providing resources both on the business models and challenges as well as the security implementations. The Payments Council did the Alliance's foundational work on EMV and the need for U.S. migration in order to combat counterfeit card fraud, and has been the key industry resource for contactless payments over the years. And the Transportation Council has been the center of industry activity on contactless open payments in transit and has a broad cross-section of members from the transit financial industry as well as industry supplier members participating. And lastly, the IoT Security Council got off to a great start in 2016 with the first white paper on embedded hardware security for IoT applications. So if you look at the councils, our effectiveness are because we have extremely high engagement with members, and all of the activities are member-driven. So all the activities are proposed by members to address critical issues that will help them be successful in the market. These are just some of the statistics. We have over 70% of Alliance members participating in one or more councils, and all those 7 councils deliver 35 to 40 projects every year. The projects are, there's a wide range of projects, but what we've heard from members that what they value, for example, is our technology advocacy. We're able to present a neutral industry view that position our technologies in the market, helping members market and sell their products. As Randy said, we have vendor-neutral educational resources, position papers, white papers, infographics, and facts that can be used not only in the U.S., but also in global markets. We're very active with our industry commentary, responding to both requests for comments on standards or responding to issues in the industry that require a unified industry voice. And lastly, we produce industry-neutral educational workshops and webinars that attract not only members but also the public. What's been interesting in working with the councils over the last years is that we've often pushed the envelope of our Smart Card Alliance mission, moving past cards to include other form factors, system-level and infrastructure security topics, and other related hardware and software that are critical to deploying systems. So the councils are actually leading the wave in terms of moving beyond the current mission. So we actually believe that the mission expansion is going to enable critical new council activities and actually allow the organization to catch up to what the council's already started. We'll continue to look at new form factors for secure chip technology. This is critical for all of our markets as the government moves to derive credentials. All markets are leveraging mobile devices, and IoT devices by their nature use embedded security techniques. Identity management and digital identity are fundamental for all of our markets. The Identity Council is already defining its charter to be more identity management focused, and identity management is also a critical issue for IoT devices, healthcare, and the other markets as well. Council work on related technologies like biometrics, host card emulation, the trusted execution environment, barcodes, and tokenization will help us to position the appropriate security technology for different applications. As an example, the Mobile Council redefined its charter last year to focus on the security of mobile applications rather than just focusing on NFC, and already has a project underway on TEE. And the Transportation Council has moved beyond open payments to look at projects for convergence across multiple transportation modes and on the use of NFC and other technologies for mobile ticketing. Councils can also take a more holistic view of security of systems and infrastructure. The Payments Council right now is redefining its charter to expand to look at the security overall of the payments infrastructure rather than the payment device. And I would note that the Council is already working on projects on blockchain technology and tokenization, again, pushing that envelope. And lastly, the mission expansion and name change will help all of our councils to attract organizations that are stakeholders in the emerging markets so that we can have cross-industry participation that we need to be successful. This is especially needed in the IoT market, where there are new infrastructure players and an absolutely critical need for secure solutions. So our expectation is that the mission expansion will enable councils to take on topics that are critical to their markets, and in some cases, help to re-energize the council and build council membership. We're looking forward to working with council members to launch and deliver projects and decide what the priorities are that are needed to deliver on our new mission to deliver secure infrastructures in the market and also to grow the market for everyone. So with that, I will turn it back to Randy for the Q&A.
Thanks, Cathy. And I just have a couple of further comments about the activities that we'll be planning going forward. So if you could go to the next slide. I'd like to summarize as the key takeaway for today's communication to you this statement, which I think captures what we've been trying to say, and that is that this change is an alignment of the current smart card strength with the new business opportunities meant to promote our member interests. So we want to continue the good work that we've done with regard to the smart card work, but the new business opportunities that may present itself to our members, we want to make sure that we are taking advantage of those business opportunities by providing education and awareness and information that people can use to take advantage of those opportunities. So the following timelines for when this is all going to start roll out are still pretty fluid, but we are on track to have our official public announcement next week. So right now we're planning on Thursday if all the other things go according to plan, but if not Thursday, early the following week. We have our first conference event coming up this month, so the 2017 Payments Summit in Orlando, which is just a month away. We're really excited about that event, and that'll be a coming out party for the Secure Technology Alliance, and we'll be sharing this information with not only our members, but also our audience of non-members who continue to follow and support the Smart Card Alliance. Also, we have many future conferences, workshops, and webinars planned. In June, we'll have our Securing Federal Identity event, which serves the government identity and access security market. We are going to continue to encourage our industry councils to organize new webinars and workshops that address educational content consistent with our broader view of secure solutions and technology. And as Cathy said, we've already begun that process. Good example of that was in February, a joint event between the Transportation Council and the IoT Security Council held a workshop called Smart Cities Transportation, the Convergence of Payments and IoT in Salt Lake City. Last September, the Payments Council and Mobile Council collaborated on a workshop that was broadcast in real time through our video streaming on the mobile wallets and the Wild West of payments that was held at the National Center for Advanced Payments and Identity Security. So we have these opportunities to leverage things like the National Training Center for more programs and more outreach to the market on our new mission, and we will continue to help support those efforts by our councils and our members. Also look for a new announcement coming up about the next IoT security event that will be held in the fall, and we're going to continue to broaden our outreach into the IoT community as well. Other communications that you're familiar with, like our daily news bulletin, our monthly member bulletins, and quarterly Smart Card Talk newsletters are going through a rebranding and reformatting to address the new image of the Secure Technology Alliance. We're going to be making modifications to the Smart Card Alliance website, and we hope to have those changes in place by the time we announce next week. We'll be keeping a legacy version of the smartcardalliance.org website open for a while so that we don't lose any page views and visitors during the transition time as we get the word out about the transition to the Secure Technology Alliance. Also, you'll see that our email domains from staff communications will change to the Secure Technology Alliance, as well as a URL name to the the Secure Technology Alliance website. Some things that are not going to change are that our membership structure and benefits for our members. So the membership levels that we have in the Smart Card Alliance are going to remain the same in the Secure Technology Alliance. the benefits of being able to participate in council activities, attend meetings with a complimentary pass, receive the daily news feeds, etc. All of those member benefits that you've enjoyed in the past will remain, and we hope that we can add some new resources to that in the future. And we will continue to support our activities with the U.S. Payments Forum, which is our chapter organization focused on the implementation of new EMV and other emerging payments technologies, as well as our chapter organization in Latin America, which services our Latin American market. Those will remain part of our overall organizational structure going forward. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for listening today, and thank you, Cathy and Brian, for your content. And we'll now open it up to your questions. We do need you to submit those questions using the dashboard that you have on your GoToMeetings thing, so that we can review them and provide answers to as many questions as possible. So let me begin with the first question here, and I'm going to address this one to Cathy. There is a question about the Secure Technology Alliance Payments Council and the U.S. Payments Forum potentially having a high level of overlap, and how will the Payments Council distinguish itself? Do you want to take that one?
That's a great question. So the U.S. Payments Forum has a very different model for its activities. It's very implementation focused. It's looking at technologies and what it takes to implement them across the stakeholders. So key concerns are, what does it mean to merchants? What does it mean to issuers? What does it mean to acquirers and processors in order to implement the technologies? The Payments Council is much more education focused and technology focused. So in terms of providing, often the Payments Council has actually provided the front activities for the Payments Forum. A lot of the contactless payments resources that we worked on last year are being used in the Payments Forum this year as they move into looking at what are the challenges with implementing contactless and mobile in the real world. So I think that's definitely a difference between the two. The other difference is that the forum does not advocate technologies. It's technology neutral, whereas the Alliance Payments Council can advocate a technology. We can actually position technologies and have a position on what technology makes the most sense for a specific application. And I also would note for those members, because the forum is a chapter of the Alliance, we do have the ability for forum members to participate in Alliance projects and Alliance members to participate in forum projects. So if you look at your member benefits, you'll find that if you see a project that you're interested in, you can request to participate. And we have a very accommodating policy for that.
Thanks, Cathy. And I would just add to that last comment that if you're not part of the leadership of one of the council groups, but you want to participate in a project that might be happening in the other organization, would be to go through your council chairs or directly to Cathy or Mike, and we can help you with facilitating that discussion with the other group. Okay, next question is, are we thinking Intel, ARM, Qualcomm should be members promoting the type of technologies they produce, or are we seeking to limit our focus to the particular class of technology that's like secure elements, not technologies like TEE and TPM? I'm going to answer that question, and maybe Brian, you might have an idea as well. But I would say that the question is correct in that we have not appealed to organizations like ARM and Qualcomm in the past, although Intel was a member of the organization for a number of years recently, because they were not in the smart card business. Right? They were in the chip business, but the chip business was primarily about embedded chip technology. now that we have this broader mission and focus, and we don't define ourselves purely as chips in cards, I think there's a great opportunity to leverage those organizations into our discussion. And it could be challenging for some of our members because some of their technologies, like TEE, for example, might actually compete with some of the hardware chip security options that are available in the market. But I think that's going to actually be a positive rather than a negative to get an understanding, because there are always going to be strong benefits of hardware security over the software-based or even in some cases embedded chip technologies that are available in the market, and that we should not limit our discussions to only those things that we feel are comfortable for our traditional base. Brian, would you have anything to add? You perhaps do some business with those companies already.
No, I think you're spot on there, Randy. This is a great opportunity to engage a lot of different players that, because of the narrow definition of the mission, we hadn't really worked with. So, no, absolutely, we would love to have discussions with them and see how they can play a role within this new organization.
Thank you. Another question came in. Does the new focus put the Secure Technology Alliance in a different competitive space with other existing industry organizations? I'll answer that, and Cathy, maybe you have a thought you could share as well. So one of my roles as the executive director has always been to be a ambassador to other industry organizations to see where we can bring value and not overlap what they're doing. And since we are still going to represent smart cards and core smart card technologies, and there are no other organizations out there that are focusing on that part, then that's not going to change. But since the Secure Technology Alliance does embrace technologies that are being used in the IoT space and in the mobile space, and perhaps be a part of some of the new portable technologies that are coming into the market, then I think it would be important for us to identify how we fit into organizations that are already in existence serving those areas. What we've already found in the IoT space is there are many IoT organizations, but few that are focusing on the security of IoT. And so one of the ways that we carve out some unique benefits as an organization is to address how do we secure the endpoints of IoT while other organizations are focusing on how do we network devices together, how do we create cheaper, broader connectivity, and how do we get those networks to talk to one another and manage the bandwidth and such that's required to communicate to them. Those organizations are mostly focused on broadening and expanding the market in terms of connected devices, but few are looking really seriously at the security side of this. And since we have that pedigree of understanding what hardware security can bring to that market, I think we offer a lot of uniqueness that's not going to overlap. Cathy, did you have anything to share?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that this actually gives us opportunities to collaborate more closely with some of the industry groups that we already have close relationships with. Since we're not limited to form factor, we become a little bit more relevant, for example, in the healthcare space. So it would actually benefit us to work with the other industry groups there. And I think it gives us a great opportunity, for example, to work more collaboratively with FIDO in particular. So I think it will be a benefit in terms of how we work with these other industry groups.
Thank you. Let's move on to another question. Can you address certifications sponsored by the Smart Card Alliance, are you adding more? And now that you have expanded your scope, and if so, what are these? So we haven't added any new training and certifications to the organization yet. Right now, we're still getting our feet wet in terms of defining what the mission is and what the scope will be in the future. But in the area of certification training, one of the areas that we've been very actively looking into is building a training and certification program around two-factor authentication and how that gets implemented to secure access to networks and cloud services. Right now, our certification has been for physical access security and overall use of smart cards in access control, identity, and payments. But we are looking at developing additional course content around the use of chip technology and logical access, which again embraces mobile phones and tokens and FIDO and other forms of authentication and authorization that needs to be a part of the discussion for securing things that are not able to be managed with a card. Okay, let's see. Keep your questions coming, guys. We still have a few more minutes left. Question came in, with the expanded scope of the organization, will there be any changes to the membership fee structure? Again, we haven't had that conversation yet at the board level. So nothing was built into this plan that would actually happen. But for those of you who have been members of the organization for a long time, I think it's been 10 years since there's been any change in membership fees. So I think anything in that area may be looked at, but there's nothing in the plan right now. Cathy, this question's for you. Are you anticipating standing up any new industry council to support the broad mission of the organization?
I think that would be driven by member priorities. We assembled a group of members last year who were very interested in the IoT market and put together the IoT Security Council. So we have a process. If there is a specific market area or technology area that we want to focus on, if there's a group of members that want to propose a council and lead a council, we go through a process of defining the scope, the activities, who would be engaged in it, and what the benefit to the market would be. And then we go through a board approval process for that. All of the councils, just to let you know, are very active in 2017. So we have a lot of projects that are already underway. And I haven't had any proposals for new councils this year, but please feel free to send Randy and me any particular areas you think we are missing.
Yeah, I would add to that I think our initial focus is going to be to communicate the new mission within our existing councils, because there's so much work that we could be doing within the Mobile Council and the IoT Security Council and even the Payments Council and Healthcare Councils in this broadening of our scope and mission that could certainly fill up all of our bandwidth. But if there is a particular vertical market or technology focus that needs to service those specific needs, then we certainly would welcome and consider adding to the list of councils that we currently support. Here's a question that I think, Brian, you'd be in the best position to answer. Is there any concern that by de-emphasizing smart cards in our organization that traditional smart card companies would find less value and leave the Secure Technology Alliance?
I think that's a great question. I think that the markets are certainly changing very quickly, but I do believe that cards are going to be around for a very long time. You know, they may, the size of the market may flatten and decline over time, but cards will be there. It's an important component of our business, but like any business, you know, you take your strengths and you build on them, and historically G&D built on manufacturing and then moved to software and solutions, and that's really what we're seeing in terms of the changes in the market. EMV cards are not going to disappear. The EMV technology is not going to disappear. It just broadens our reach in terms of using this technology in other markets.
Great answer, Brian. Okay, I think I've answered so far all of the questions. If there's anybody out there that still has a question they'd like to present, please do it now. And if I don't see one coming through, then I'll just move on to my final wrap-up comment. Okay, Cathy, why don't you just put up the contact slide. We would welcome your input and your feedback on what you've heard today. This is all pretty exciting stuff, but it's pretty new and it might take a little time to absorb this. We also ask you to share this information with your fellow colleagues in your organization and let them know what you heard today. And also we'll be making this presentation available to anyone who wants to listen to the recording of it and see the presentation content. And you'll be able to download the slide deck as well as soon as we get it posted up on the Smart Card Alliance website. This is really an exciting time for our industry and our organization. I want to thank Brian and Cathy for their contributions to this webinar. And most importantly, I want to recognize the hard work of our staff and our support team that have been putting in hours and hours in preparation for this announcement. Both Cathy Medich, Deb Marshall, and Shelby Vodopek on our staff have been doing the bulk of the work in the changing of the language and the graphics and the information that's going to be part of our messaging going forward. Our web team at Devrient, which does a phenomenal job in making the updates and changes we need to our public site and our member site. Our PR team with Megan and Adrian at Montner & Associates, who contribute to providing us with guidance and direction on communications of our information to our members and our followers. Our graphics designer, Ed Machin, who did a terrific job in the logo design. Our great board of directors for their leadership and support during this process. And then finally to you, our members, for your support and your continued thought leadership that keeps everything that we do moving forward. So thank you all again very much. And hopefully we'll be in touch with you very soon, and we'll see you all at the upcoming events. And we look forward to your continued participation in the new Secure Technology Alliance. Thank you all. Have a great day.